G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, we're going to be having a look at one of the best German jets in the game that isn't even German. But you know what? It doesn't even bloody matter, because the Germans got it, they modified it, and this is exactly what it is. This is the G91, I was going to say G91Y, but it's the G91R3. This is perhaps, in my opinion, the best non-afterburning G91 in the game, solely because it has some of the best armament. It has the two Defa cannons, and it also gets some nice secondary armament, that being the 4 AS Nords. Not the AA Nords, and it doesn't get any AA missiles at all, but honestly, it's practically, more or less, kinda, sorta, functionally the same as the G91R and the G91R4. So, how exactly do I go about playing this thing? You can see that I don't really have... Well, I do. I have a very nice, friendly-ish matchmaker. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plane into a straight line. You might think that's really simple. You might also think that's kind of dumb. But I'm going to do two things. What I want to do is I want to get some speed. And then when I get enough of that speed, I'm going to just convert it into one giant burst climb. Because you see, what happens half the time is that you'll get people that'll chase you, they'll do a 180, and they'll lose all their energy doing that 180 for you. They'll come back, and they'll get cleaned up by the people behind you. Except, in this match, that doesn't really happen. I find it really, really sad, because I really miss those old days of just absolutely rushing the hell out of jets, going straight into an absolute clusterfuck of a fight, and it just coming out really, really nicely. Instead, now everyone climbs, and, I get it. I get why you may want to. But honestly, I think the team rush strategy is better, and I'm gonna try and maybe squad up with some people in Discord or something like that, and try and get some footage to show you exactly how a team rush would work. Obviously, if you're by yourself and your team doesn't rush with you, then it's pretty pointless. But for me, I like to do it anyway because, a nice habit, and if someone wants to follow me in, they're more than welcome to clean up the scraps that come out behind me. Now, what I'm going to do next is kind of weird, because you think about the match and how it evolves. Normally, you have a lot of people either climbing straight up through this path. They would either be above me or below me, and then I would put myself up into a vertical, but it doesn't seem like any of the enemy planes have done that. Or at least the cloud cover has masked that. And so, we're ending up with this little dogfight below the clouds. So, I'm going to do what is best. I'm going to respond to the changing battle. Now, you've got to be really aware of how a battle sort of pans out. You've got to see roughly where the enemies are, roughly where they're sort of heading towards, roughly their altitude, and you can sort of gauge their speed with a little bit of experience. But for now, I'm going to try and head back into this clusterfuck and deal with a couple of the enemies here. You see, the G91 is extremely maneuverable, and it also accelerates relatively well. So it is one of those planes that you can sort of just get into a little bit of a dogfight, and most of the time you'll sort of come out on top. You see, as long as you don't mess up your shots like that. That meteor should have been dead, but I potatoed, and that's entirely my fault, and now I have a Kai 200 on my ass. This thing is going to absolutely rip me a new one if I'm not careful, and you can see I'm turn fighting with it, because why not? I really shouldn't be. It's really not advisable, and you can see I'm trying my damnness to stay out of its guns. I'm going to put my nose down just a little bit. I'm going to try not to run out of speed, because this is the number one trick against the plane that sort of turns better than you slightly, or in the Kai 200's case, a lot. Try not to run out of speed, because if you need to get out of there, you're going to have to put it into a dive. Now, I've gone and put it into basically a 70-degree dive. That's a bit of a no-no, but I didn't really have a choice, because the Ki 200 sort of accelerates a lot better than me, and it also turns a bit better than me. The only disadvantage it has is its endurance and its lack of top speed over me. I can hit 1,000 very quickly, but I have a teammate to come and clean it up. Now, this teammate also baits this F2 into a bit of a turn. He's a bit slow. I'm going to put some defers down his way and shear his tail off. That's pretty good. And now I'm going to go for speed. Speed is your lifeblood in jets. If altitude is your lifeblood in props, then speed is your lifeblood in jets. I'm going to go for a quick sort of sneaky head-on against this F2. I don't really know what he's doing, but you know what? he's not going to go for that last minute head on, so I'm going to try and take him instead. I'm just really trying to keep myself alive here. At this point, I'm playing not to lose, if you will. I don't want to throw my plane away, and I see that a lot, actually. I might have to make a video on that too, how people just absolutely throw their plane away, and it's really, really sad, to be honest, because a lot of people could just... I mean, the silver lions you're throwing away by committing to a head-on and risking all of that, the last-minute head-on and crashing into your enemy, you risk a lot. But I'm getting a little bit off topic. The G91R. This thing is really versatile, and honestly, it makes it a little bit brain-dead to fly, if you will. It's not idiot-proof by any means, but you can just sort of get away with a few things. By no means is it overpowered, but it certainly is extremely competitive. I wouldn't quite put it as just as I don't know. I think it's about as good as a MiG-15 BIS, and I think the Swift F7 comes really close. I think the Venom comes really close, and I think 8.7, honestly, one of the best matchmakers in the game at the moment, just because it's just got such a wide variety of competitive jets. And speaking of competitive, this MiG-15 wants a little taste of my defers. Would you look at that? You can pull off some insane maneuvers, and if you can get a MiG-15 at high speed, and you can drop that speed just a little bit, you can just tone down that acceleration, use a little bit of air brake, something like that, you can really pull some crazy maneuvers. Now, you don't want to be maneuvering at high speed because, one, you bleed a lot of energy that way, and two, you can risk ripping if you have boosters. Now, I don't have the boosters unlocked at the moment, but I don't think I'm going to use them because I find the plane to be maneuverable enough without the booster modification. What I don't find good about the G91 is it doesn't quite have as much energy and as much sort of top end as the Supermarine Swift. Well, at least in this situation here. You can see that I'm climbing, and I don't quite have every modification unlocked, so it could change. And this is something that you have to keep in mind. A stock jet is extremely different to a spaded jet. If you're having troubles with, say, a stock MiG-15, just try your best and try your hardest to get as many kills, assists, any damage that you can, any RP that you can, as possible. Because that will greatly affect your performance. Just go straight for those performance in that gun, and you'll end up having a decent time. Now, in the G91R3 here, I've got the cannons upgraded, and I have got some of the modifications regarding the performance researched. But it's still quite... I don't know, there's something about it. I think that afterburner on the Swift really does a good thing for it. Honestly, the Swift F7 for me is Britain's meta 8.7. That and the Venom, if you run them in tandem, my god, you can have a monster lineup. If you run them in a two-man squad, it's great. And I love 8.7. It's honestly the best battle rating at any air combat for jets. Any air combat. Ground forces, probably not. I mean, yes, you have like plenty of good CAS options, F-84G, the FJ4, the G91Y, sorry, G91R, I keep saying G91Y, you have the MiG-15 BIS, you have plenty of good options, but honestly, RRB, it's, I don't know, 8.7 just feels good. It just feels nice. And unless, say, that a Swift makes a mistake, he's pretty much untouchable. If you work together as a team in your G91s, you can bait enemies down to such low speeds that you can finish them off really easily, and then use your speed, use your decent acceleration to, pick it up again. It's really good. And there's a spot for everyone. And I think this is why the G91Y shines. Because it's in that Goldilocks zone. And it's a very, very strong plane. It's not overpowered, but it's not foolproof either. It's just a plane that it pulls well, it turns okay at low speed, it's light, it accelerates well. It's one of those planes that just sort of does almost everything well. And honestly, if you're a good pilot, this plane is really, really nice and friendly to fly. It's actually not a bad jet to sort of win yourself into that higher tier jet combat. Honestly, if you're going for Germany, I think the Horten 229 is your best starter. It's a tough jet to fly, and once you master it, you'll be really, really set. But when you get that G91, my God, it is one of the easiest jets to fly. You'll go from the Horton, it'll be super tough at first, you'll struggle a lot, but having deeper cannons that are able to just absolutely shred, you can see me here going for a cheeky shot on that Swift, and I get it, because the deeper cannons work. These guns, anything 30mm in this game that's not low velocity like the MK108s, I believe. Yes, 108s. I honestly think they're great. Now, you can see me here. I'm not going to go for that Swift because he's already dead. And you know what? I'm going to be nice. I believe the guy, said a couple of things in chat. Noticed me. I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to let him live. I'm going to let him keep his KD because apparently, if the pilot lives, he keeps his KD. What I'm not going to tolerate though is someone that sits around the airfield all day. But yeah, I can't aim this thing. I really can't. I honestly struggle so much with these anything Aiden based, honestly. But having an easy airframe like the G91 means that I can just go around again for another try. I just take my, the extra throttle off, and I put the air brake on and just go for a nice shot again. And I can do this again and again and again because the G91 R3 is so forgiving. And I've said this before, it's probably one of the most brain-dead planes to fly because it's so forgiving. It's such a great beginner plane, honestly, for this mid to high tier era of jets. It's really great because it just does enough to teach you well, and it also sort of gets you into that swept wing era of jet combat where you've got to start focusing on your speed, and it allows you to, accelerate when you need to, but it also allows you to turn when you need to, and the guns are relatively easy to learn. I mean, I'm a bit of a fucking spastic when it comes to these, and I find it a little bit hard to aim these. But honestly, if you learn and you practice, it's pretty straightforward. The G91 R3 is probably the most straightforward jet in the game right now. Anyway, ladies and gents, I hope you really enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.